Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Prime Minister Narendra Modi leads the nation in celebrating the 78th Independence Day from the historic Red Fort. Says a secular civil code is the need of the times. Makes fresh pitch for one nation, one election. Gaza ceasefire and hostage release talks begin in Doha, Qatar. Hamas not attending the meet. Mossad chief expected to join. And fierce fighting continues between Russia and Ukraine in the Kursk region. Russia declares a federal level emergency in the Belgorod region. Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi underscored the imperative of implementing key reforms towards making India developed by 2047, inspired by the legacy of India's freedom struggle. Speaking from the historic Red Fort in New Delhi, he presented a compelling call for a secular uniform code, one nation, one election, and opening doors for inducting more youth in Indian politics. DD India's Rahul Upadhyay reports.
On the occasion of India's 78th Independence Day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi unfurled the national flag at Red Fort in Delhi for the 11th consecutive time. Prime Minister received Rashtriya Salute from Punjab Regiment Military Band. PM also inspected the Guard of Honour, which consisted of 1 officer and 24 personnel, each from Army, Air Force and Delhi Police. Addressing the nation from the ramparts of the Red Fort, Prime Minister recalled the sacrifices people made for the nation. He touched upon many issues of national importance in his nearly 100-minute speech. PM took a strong exception to crime and violence against women in the backdrop of widespread protests across the nation against West Bengal's horrific rape and murder case.
एम्प्लॉयमेंट हो, एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप हो, हर सेक्टर में महिलाओं के कदम बढ़ते जा रहे हैं, लेकिन दूसरी तरफ कुछ चिंता की बातें भी आती हैं कि हमारी माताओं, बहनों, बेटियों के प्रति जो अत्याचार हो रहे हैं, उसके प्रति देश का आक्रोश है। इस आक्रोश को मैं महसूस कर रहा हूं। इसको देश को, समाज को, हमारी राज्य सरकारों को गंभीरता से लेना होगा। महिलाओं के विरुद्ध अपराधों की जल्द से जल्द जांच हो, राक्षसी कृत्य करने वालों को जल्द से जल्द कड़ी सजा हो, वो समाज में विश्वास पैदा करने के लिए जरूरी है।
Prime Minister assured that the government's commitment to economic reform is unshakable. He also made a strong pitch for uniform civil code.
जो कानून धर्म के आधार पर देश को बांटते हैं, जो ऊंच नीच का कारण बन जाते हैं, ऐसे कानूनों को आधुनिक समाज में कोई स्थान नहीं हो सकता है। और इसलिए मैं तो कहूंगा, अब समय की मांग है कि देश में एक सेकुलर सिविल कोड हो। हमने कम्युनल सिविल कोड में 75 साल बिताए हैं, अब हमें सेक्युलर सिविल कोड की तरफ जाना होगा और तब जाकर के देश में धर्म के आधार पर जो भेदभाव हो रहे हैं, सामान्य नागरिक को जो दूरी महसूस होती है, उससे हमें मुक्ति मिलेगी।
PM mentioned the crisis in Bangladesh. He said India remains concerned about safety of Hindus and other minorities in Bangladesh.
140 करोड़ देशवासियों की चिंता कि वहां हिंदू, वहां के अल्पसंख्यक, उस समुदाय की सुरक्षा सुनिश्चित हो। भारत हमेशा चाहता है कि हमारे पड़ोसी देश सुख और शांति के मार्ग पर चले। शांति के प्रति हमारा कमिटमेंट है, हमारे संस्कार है। हम आने वाले दिनों में बांग्लादेश की विकास यात्रा में हमेशा हमारा शुभचिंतन ही रहेगा.
Concluding his speech, Prime Minister acknowledged the greetings of people gathered at the Red Fort. Crowds were seen jostling with one another to shake hands with Prime Minister and take selfies with him. PM also went to the enclosure where school children were present and acknowledged their love and affection. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
So on the occasion of the 78th Independence Day, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi outlined India's commitment towards becoming a global leader in semiconductor production. Praising his commitment, founder and chairman SNG and partners and advocates and solicitors Rajesh Narayan Gupta said that the focus on green energy and development around it will not only benefit India but also the world.
Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, has set out a very futuristic vision for Viksit Bharat by 2047, focusing on some of the greatest initiatives like making India education hub by reviving the Nalanda spirit and ease of living for the citizen of this country, and how we will achieve 500 gigawatt of renewable energy to contribute to the climate mitigation efforts by 2030.
Country head appears in India, Vinay Kumar Swamy, also said that Prime Minister Modi's Independence Day address laid out a roadmap for India's future as a global leader.
We heard Honorable Prime Minister talking about good initiatives, what we are doing in India, out of which I just want to pick three things. The Green Initiative, the Skill India, and then Design for India and Design for the World. These are very crucial because the amount of talent what we have, I'm sure we can actually design for the world. And similarly, the upcoming Workforce of the Future, the Skill India Initiative will really help.
Talking about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision for Viksit Bharat, that's developed India by 2047, CEO and Secretary General PhD CCI Dr. Ranjit Mehta said that Prime Minister Modi is focusing on some of the greatest initiatives like Education Hub.
This morning it was so much inspiring once again to hear our Honorable Prime Minister talk about the vision and a roadmap for Viksit Bharat by 2047. Some of the areas that he spoke about sincerely resonates with our institution, and we feel that it would be so critical and important for CII to bring in the industry to contribute to nation building through many, many areas that he focused upon.
Managing Director of Doordarshan Systems, Deepak NG, highlighted 3 points from Prime Minister Modi's speech, which include green energy, skill India, design in India and design for the world.
Our Prime Minister has spoken about us for all the ANMs and all the Ashas. Today, we represent Nagaland as an Asha because of the achievement we have done in Nagaland.
Speaking about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's roadmap for developed India by 2047, Director General of CII Chandrajit Banerjee said that Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlighted how industries will play a crucial role in Amrit Kal. An Asha worker from Nagaland expressed their gratitude to Prime Minister Narendra Modi on being invited for the flag hoisting ceremony at the Red Fort. Now, wishes have poured in from across the world as India celebrates its 78th Independence Day. French President Emmanuel Macron congratulated India. He recalled the moment when he visited India in January this year and said that he looks forward to work with Prime Minister Modi to achieve mutual goals. Nepalese Prime Minister also extended his wishes. He said that may this day strengthen the bonds of friendship and cooperation between India and Nepal. He also said that he looks forward to advancing Nepal-India relations. President of Maldives, Dr. Mohammad Muizzu, also extended wishes. He said that India's Maldives' enduring friendship is rooted in history and has evolved to foster prosperity and development in the Maldives and the region. He added that he is confident that India-Maldives partnership will continue to strengthen, driving mutual prosperity and shared goals. As India commemorates its 78th Independence Day today and reflects on its major defining moments, one sector that adds tremendously to the India rising and India shining story is space. India is inching towards having an indigenous space station by 2035, with ISRO's mission Gaganyaan gearing up to send India's astronauts to low Earth orbit on board an Indian launch vehicle. Demonstrating India's space prowess, Prime Minister Modi has called it India's stellar decade in space. DD India's Prasar Bharati gets us more in the next report.
ये सिर्फ 4 नाम और 4 इंसान नहीं है, ये 140 करोड़ एस्पिरेशंस को स्पेस में ले जाने वाली 4 शक्तियां हैं। 40 वर्ष के बाद कोई भारतीय अंतरिक्ष में जाने वाला है।
As nation celebrates its 78th Independence Day, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's clarion call in February 2024, setting the tone for India's very own space mission with a spectacular launch of Gaganyaan, another significant step cementing India's space prowess globally. ISRO's ambitious mission Gaganyaan will send Indian astronauts on board an Indian launch vehicle, a defining moment in India's space journey. This mission is India's first human space flight program, for which extensive preparations are underway at various ISRO centers across the country. 2 unmanned and 1 manned mission are approved by Government of India under this program. In a big first, 3-member crew will cover over 400-kilometer orbit in 3 days, followed by safe return to Earth by landing in Indian sea waters. Superior and new technologies comprising engineering and human-centric systems are integrated for Gaganyaan, with human safety accorded paramount importance. Meet India's astronauts designate for Gaganyaan, who will carry in their hearts the aspirations of nation of billions to space. Group Captain Prashant Balakrishnan Nair, Group Captain Ajit Krishan, Group Captain Angad Pratap and Wing Commander Subhanshu Shukla are India's astronauts designate for Gaganyaan, India's first crewed space mission. Crew training for space mission is underway. The astronauts have completed 2 out of 3 semesters of training, which includes training on the space flight basic module in Russia. And before the manned mission, ISRO plans to conduct 2 more uncrewed missions in 2025. Another fascinating aspect of Gaganyaan is Vyom-Mitra, female-looking spacefaring humanoid robot astronaut set to fly into space. Vyom-Mitra is part of uncrewed experimental Gaganyaan mission prior to crewed spaceflight mission. India at 78 sees this giant leap for a nation of billions poised to become space superpower, with India marking its territory in space, having India's own space station by 2035.
लेकिन इस बार टाइम भी हमारा है, काउंटडाउन भी हमारा है और रॉकेट भी हमारा है।
Sakal Bhatt's report for DD India.
78th Independence Day of India was celebrated at the Indian Embassy in Kathmandu on Thursday. Ambassador of India to Nepal hoisted the national flag in Kathmandu. On this occasion, the ambassador honoured widows and next of kin of those deceased, the Gorkha soldiers of the Indian Armed Forces. The event witnessed renditions of patriotic songs and dance performances by teachers, students of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Centre and Kendriya Vidyalaya. The Indian Embassy in Riyadh marked the 78th Independence Day of India with a grand celebration on Thursday. Ambassador Dr. Suhail Ajaz Khan hoisted the tricolour and delivered the President's message to the nation. In his address, the ambassador highlighted the growing ties between India and Saudi Arabia and extended best wishes to the Indian diaspora. He also emphasized the philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, meaning the world is one family. The event was attended by over 500 people, including embassy officials and members of the Indian community. You're watching DD India Live, still to come on this show. UK's economy records a second quarter of strong growth as it recovered from last year's shallow recession. Mpox is a global public health emergency, says WHO chief Dr. Ghebreyesus. And India's cricket body, the BCCI, rejects International Cricket Council's offer to host the Women's T20 World Cup this year. You're watching DD India Live. I am Tanvita Neja. The ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine has escalated into a complex and volatile situation. Russian Defense Ministry said that its forces had regained control of the settlement of Krapets in the Kursk region. Russia has also declared a federal-level emergency in the Belgorod region and reportedly taken control of Ivanivka village in Donetsk region of Ukraine. Meanwhile, a video released by the Russian Defense Ministry on Wednesday showed a Ukrainian armored vehicle identified as a US-made Striker being targeted and destroyed by Russian forces in the Kursk region. And DD India's Dasha Chernishova joins us from Moscow now. Dasha, what's the latest on Ukraine's forces pushing along the Russian border front of Kursk?
Well, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense, the Russian armed forces have been able to regain control in the settlement of Krupets, and they have also said that they have been able to complete the destruction of the enemy forces, as they have described it. We understand that the fighting is still ongoing in Russia's Kursk region, with the local authorities there announcing the mandatory evacuation of Lushkovsky district. That's another one that is now seeing the civilian population being taken deeper inside the country. We also have heard from the Russian Ministry of Defense that a total of over 2,600 Ukrainian military have been lost by the Ukrainian armed forces since the start of this incursion last week. And the situation is still developing very rapidly, with Russian MOD sending reinforcements to its Kursk region.
Okay, Dasha, emergency has been declared in Russia's Belgorod border region, which adjoins the Kursk region. Has all this put pressure on the Russian army?
That's right. The authorities in the Belgorod region, the second one, also borders the Ukrainian regions, has declared now the federal level state of emergency. That means that the situation is far more serious. The governor has hinted at that before, and the Emercom has recently said that they have assessed the situation, and indeed they say it is a federal emergency that requires the federal level of reaction. We've heard from the Russian Minister of Defense, Andrei Belousov, who was holding a series of meetings with his staff, saying that the General Staff has worked out the plan of direct actions that will be providing for the integrity, territorial integrity, as well as the integrity of the Russian infrastructure in that area. Obviously, that comes as the region has been coming under the daily shelling from the Ukrainian side. But indeed, there is a lot of pressure on the Russian authorities to provide for the security of its border regions. And the Russian president has earlier said that Ukraine will try to destabilize, as he described, the situation in other border regions, suggesting that the territories of Bryansk region have to be prepared to any sort of developments as well.
Thank you, Dasha. Dasha Chernishova reporting from Moscow. On to the other conflict between Israel and Hamas. A fresh round of Gaza peace talks is underway in the Qatari capital Doha, offering a glimmer of hope for a ceasefire in the conflict. The United States is pushing for all parties to participate in the negotiations, encouraging both Israel and Hamas to compromise. Mossad chief David Barnea is expected to join the peace talks, even as Hamas has opted out of the meeting. Meanwhile, protesters, including families of Israeli hostages, rallied in Tel Aviv on Thursday, urging an immediate resolution to this conflict. On to Europe. Britain's economy recorded a second quarter of strong growth as it recovered from last year's shallow recession, but it lost momentum as it entered the second half of 2024. Gross domestic product grew 0.6% between April and June after a 0.7% expansion in the first quarter. In the month of June, monthly output growth slowed to 0 from 0.4% in May, while the doctors' strike contributed to a 1.5% drop in healthcare activity. Taylor Swift is set to perform in London later today with her first concert since 3 shows of hers were called off in Austria last week because of an alleged terror plot. She's playing 5 dates at Wembley Stadium on what is expected to become the biggest grossing music tour of all time. DD India's Stuart Smith has filed this report from London.
The British capital is playing host to Taylor Swift more than any other city in the world. It will, by the end of her tour, have hosted Taylor Swift 8 times, which means another 90,000 fans will get to see her at Wembley Stadium, the second largest venue in Europe of its kind, for another time. But this is tainted by the recent security concerns in Vienna, where authorities say a terror attack was planned. This is her first tour since then, her first gig since then, and it means that there are extra concerns about security here. Now, the Metropolitan Police, which is responsible for policing in London, says there is no specific information to indicate that there is anything like what's being investigated by the Austrian authorities being planned here, but it says it's always on the lookout and will work closely with venue security teams as well as other intelligence services here in the UK to try to make sure everyone stays safe. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has emphasised that the capital plays host to all sorts of large events all the time, and so is very used to running large-scale events like this one. As to what it means, though, for fans entering the stadium later on Thursday, there will be the usual bag searches, more than once perhaps, outside and inside the stadium, as well as multiple ticket checks, and fans are being asked not to gather outside the stadium, as has happened in other locations across the world. Anyone without a ticket will not be able to stay and gather unless they are entering the stadium. So people being told to keep away unless they're inside in order to try and facilitate these extra security measures. Stuart Smith in London, reporting for DD India.
Back to New Delhi. After Independence Day celebrations, Prime Minister Narendra Modi met the Indian Olympic contingent at his residence. Over 117 Indian athletes took part in the Paris Olympics. India bagged 6 medals, 1 silver and 5 bronze at the Games. Prime Minister Modi said that every player who went to Paris is a champion. The government will continue to support sports and ensure that a top quality sporting infrastructure is built in the country. India, as we told you, won 6 medals at the Paris Games. Indian athletes who took part at the Paris Olympic 2024 Games attended the Independence Day celebrations at the Red Fort in New Delhi. The athletes included Indian men's hockey team who bagged consecutive bronze medal at the Olympics. Double bronze medalist shooter Manu Bhaker was also in attendance at the 78th Independence Day celebration in the national capital. The Board of Control for Cricket in India, BCCI, has rejected International Cricket Council's offer to host the Women's T20 World Cup this year in case there is a change of venue due to political turmoil in Bangladesh. The Women's T20 World Cup 2024 is scheduled to be played in Bangladesh in September-October this year. The ICC is now exploring potential options to relocate the tournament if the situation in the host country continues to remain volatile. That's it in this edition of DD India Live. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can catch all the latest news and updates on our DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. And you can also connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja. To every Indian in any part of the world, here's wishing you a very happy Independence Day. Namaskar.